It's a real fake news update, not brought to you by Pfizer. We're going to look at the Syrian president. He's a temp president or an acting president that was assigned by the U.S. government, who happens to be an ex-Al-Qaeda leader who happened to have a $10 million bounty on his head, as early as just at the beginning of 2025 this year, which was just taken off his head. Now he's an official guest of the White House. Let's see how the Guardian reports on this story. I'm sure they're going to tell you all the details and all the layers that are going on here. But I'd be lying to you if I told you that. No, they're only going to tell you their spin on it. So let's start with that. Here's the Guardian. U.S. declares partial suspension of sanctions on Syria after historic meeting. Ahmed al-Sharar and Donald Trump hold first White House summit between the U.S. and Syrian leader since 1946. I wonder why it's the first meeting. We'll get into that part later, but they're certainly going to be hyping up the first and this incredible moment, which couldn't have been done without the skill of Donald Trump. And make no mistake, all of the media outlets have every opportunity to call out U.S. imperialism and call out the war machine and blame it on Trump if they want to, but none of them are doing it. They're all calling this something very accomplished and something we should be proud of. So that should be your red flag right there. Why are they not, for these outlets that their job has been to make Trump look bad for year after year after year, why are they reporting this as a accomplished moment in U.S. history? Well, let's look further. The U.S. has announced a partial suspension of sanctions on Syria after this historic meeting in D.C. between the new leader and Trump. On Monday, this first summit, which happened at the White House, never had happened since 1946. It's so interesting. 1946, I guess that was before Israel was created, when they first occupied Palestine and started setting a precedent for our Middle East policies. Interesting. I wonder if that's a coincidence or we just happen to not get around to having a meeting since 1946. Okay. So they're calling this, the meeting is part of a remarkable turnaround in U.S.-Syrian relations after the fall of Bashar al-Assad, who had prosecuted a deadly, here we go, there are the lies. He did not do that. He did not prosecute a deadly civil war in the country from 2011 until his forces collapsed in December 2024. It was a coup attempt in 2011, and we failed, and then we tried again in December of last year. We caused the entire thing. We created the entire fake narrative of Assad did chemical weapons on his own people. That was fake. They admitted that. The news outlets had admitted that. So it's funny that the Guardian doesn't want to remind us of that little oopsie that happened there in 2011. And then again, they contrived a story of how we saved everyone there. It was like a 9-day turnaround of ousting Assad and then just fictionalizing the entire account about it, which CNN did a great job of doing because they're usually the first to do that and do a good job. It's theater on it's news. It's theater pretending to be news, but it's just theater. It's like a scripted, right? Okay, so they are mentioning the part about the $10 million bounty on his head. So he arrived in the White House on Monday in a dark suit and a red tie as he sought to lobby Trump for sanction relief for the former pariah state. I love it. I love the characterization here, mischaracterization. Okay. So the U.S. had said it wanted Syria to join a U.S.-led coalition against Islamic State. Well, how are we going to do that unless we control Syria? We have to control Syria to get them to do whatever we want, right? Well, while Syria said that it planned to reopen its embassy in Washington after it was closed more than a decade ago, under Assad. Right. So now we can get our policy done on behalf of Israel, which is exactly what the plan is and why we had to switch him out and get him out. And now Assad is actually in Russia right now, being protected by Putin right now. But they didn't care. They just wanted him out, dead or alive. They wanted him out, and it happened. That announcement was not made on Monday, although Shara says the sides had come to a political agreement. Asked whether further announcements about Syria's joining the coalition against Islamic State or on a security pact with Israel, Trump said, yes, you can expect an announcement on Syria. We want to see Syria become a country that is very successful. And by successful, he means cooperative, right? That's what he actually means. We want cooperation. And so does Netanyahu. So everybody's in alignment of why we needed this guy to be instilled as the new puppet president. Although he's technically a temporary puppet president, but we'll see how well they do spinning it. I think they called it temporary because they wanted breathing room in case the marketing campaign went south. But it doesn't look like it's going south. It looks like everybody's on board for this. Watch CNN's coverage on this. This is pretty fantastic. And if you're a CNN viewer, you're going to believe that something really historic happened. At the same time, you still hate Trump. Isn't that interesting? I still hate Trump. I watch CNN. But you know what? He might have done a good job with this Al-Qaeda leader. Let's see.
Is the lead global security analyst for Washington Post Intelligence, and he joins us now live. Josh, your reaction to this visit, clearly a historic one.
It is a historic day. He's not only the first Syrian president to ever visit the White House, he's the first former terrorist to ever visit the White House and meet with the president. And President Trump
former terrorist. Oh, go on.
Made a what I would say a very bold and somewhat risky decision to support Syria's transition and to support its new leadership after 14 years of war and 54 years of tyranny. And because President Trump decided to do that, that opened up Syria and the president to every other country in the world. And this is, in my opinion, giving Syria the best chance of becoming a successful, stable country in the Middle East. And not only that, it has the best chance of Syria becoming a close friend and ally of the United States and working with us against things like ISIS, as they agreed to do today, which is a pretty big change from the Syria that we knew under Bashar al-Assad, who was a real terrorist and who was best friends with Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah, which is not good.
You predicted we're
best friends with Russia, Iran, and Hezbollah, which is not good. Yeah, and some would say this. Actually, I think it was Fiorella who pointed this out. It might have been possible that one of the big reasons we pushed the Ukraine war was to distract Russia. So they took their eye. So Putin took his eye off the ball because he was the reason primarily that we failed at the coup attempt in 2011 under Obama. And we failed ever since. We couldn't figure out how do we take Syria? We got to take Syria. Remember, it was on the list of the 7 wars in 5 years. We didn't quite make the 5 years, but General Wesley Clark told Amy Goodman and her audience 7 wars in 5 years. Well, guess what? We have Syria crossed off that box. Now, it took an extra several years, but we did pull it off, and we pulled it off shockingly in about 9 days this past December. So anyways, now you're getting a bunch of firsts because we completely control the Syrian government. We wonder, though, why would they put this guy in charge? Why would they do it? How did they defend this? Well, let's look at some of the reactions to this, because the first thing he did before he met Trump is he went to go play basketball right here. Okay, so this is a post from Yashar Ali. Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharar has just landed in the U.S. First-time Syrian president, visited the U.S., not part of UNGA. He'll be meeting with Trump this week. So that meeting already happened. But before that, he's playing basketball with the commander of CENTCOM. His name is Brad Cooper. So I'll show you that one in a second. But just for historical context, which you're not going to get from CNN, just 11 months ago, you had the $10 million bounty on his head. 20 years ago, he was held for years at a U.S. military facility at Camp Bucca after being captured by U.S. forces in Iraq during the insurgency. So to say that this is one of the most stunning turnarounds in U.S. diplomatic and counterterrorism history, I believe is an understatement. That is the $10 million bounty. This went out everywhere. They're not going to remind you this on, I mean, they did a throwaway line about it on CNN. They're laughing like, ha ha ha, used to be a terrorist, ha ha ha. So, but that was real. That really happened. This is the guy. Now he's wearing a black suit and a red tie. He wasn't wearing that suit and tie on this wanted ad that we know. Well, let's see him playing basketball. This is the first thing he did, and he took the jacket off for this. Look at this. So he took the jacket off and put him in the tie. I mean, this guy. It is insane. I mean, this guy, his life story must. There will be a book. There will be a book. But shaking hands with the very people that put a bounty on his head. So who's getting this right? Who's getting it wrong? Well, even some of the people calling out the hypocrisy here of the Trump administration. We know that there's MAGAs that are calling out the hypocrisy, which is important, but they're not going deep enough as far as what the reveal here actually is. What the reveal actually is. So here's Trump being asked about it after the meeting, about the relationship with Syria right now after this meeting. Let's see how he spins it, because he's pretty good at the spinning. Let's see what he has prepared, because he certainly prepped these answers.
Yeah, you can expect some announcements on Syria. We want to see Syria become a country that's very successful, and I think this leader can do it. I really do. I think this leader can do it. And people said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough.
He said people say he's had a rough past. What did he was he a drug addict? Did he have a depression? Did he have a bad upbringing? What do you mean he had a rough past? And people say it. He doesn't try. I don't know about that, but people say it. But we've all been through things, right, guys? So that's pretty genius of him. We've all been through stuff. Let's leave the past alone, right?
Pasts, but he has had a rough past, and I think, frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance.
If you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance. How interesting. What an interesting spin. Any journalist, any quote-unquote journalist going to call him out on that answer? No.
He gets along very well with Turkey, with President Erdogan, who's a great leader. Erdogan's a great leader.
Oh, yeah. This is great. Great breakdown. And you expect Trump to do that. That's his job, right? But the bigger story here isn't the way Trump is spinning it. It's the way the media is not holding him accountable. Again, that should be the giveaway. Does it have to be said? I think it does. It has to be said that we already know 100% factually that the U.S. funded Al-Qaeda. The U.S. funded ISIS. The U.S. has created Al-Qaeda. This is something that's been admitted several times over and over. Hillary Clinton admitted this. Barack Obama admitted this. Nobody's denying it. So these news outlets know this. They know this to be true. Yet they leave it out of their stories. They leave it out of their reporting. That's really the giveaway. And I do understand the sentiment on the right. There's a lot of Islamophobia on the right. We get that if you happen to be scared of terrorists, if you happen to think that 19 hijackers did X, Y, and Z with box cutters, if you happen to believe that, you should be, with that mindset, you should be extra furious that Trump has a guy like that in the White House pretending that he just has a rough past, that he wasn't part of what we were told, a terrorist organization that came here to kill us, right? But it's worse than that, because we created the terror. We created these terror groups. This is an Israel ploy, right? This is the Netanyahu funding Hamas. You create the thing, so you then create the event and then create justification for the retaliation. So once you're able to connect those dots, you understand that this guy was never actually a threat to us. He was controlled by us the entire time. That's why it doesn't really matter that he's leading Syria right now, because he's always listened to what we tell him to do. That's the big aha. And I wish more on the right would understand that, but at least they're calling out the hypocrisy of having this guy at all, especially during a time when there's so much extra Islamophobia because Mamdani is in office now in New York, and there's so many right-wingers that are petrified of Sharia laws coming. And then to have this meeting, it symbolizes not just a disconnect on the right, a disconnect with the American people, but a disconnect with the media, which isn't the media. It highlights overall that the entire system we live in is all rigged and it's all staged, because none of it actually makes any sense. If you take it seriously, none of it actually makes any sense at all. So let's see what happens on Fox News, because is he going to get any questions here? Well, he does. He gets a few questions. Let's see exactly how they cover al-Shara on Fox News, asking him about the contradiction of what he's about. And unfortunately, I mean, it's good to ask a question, but he has these answers prepared, and you'll see they're designed to make the Fox News audience less afraid, which is what they're doing on Fox right now. Set up the question with a good answer. Now we can rest assured, get a good night's sleep. We're all good. Trump is still America first, 10D chess, blah, blah, blah. Here we go.
Affiliated with Al-Qaeda. Just 11 months ago, you were designated by the U.S. government a foreign terrorist. You were actually on the wanted list. Times have obviously changed. Now you're playing basketball with military leaders here in Washington. You're meeting with President Trump. What has changed in the U.S.-Syria relationship? And then equally importantly, sir, what has changed about you in that time?
We talked about the future, the present, and the past, and so we talked about lifting the sanctions, and there was a decision at the United Nations, at the Security Council, to lift the sanctions on myself and other people as well.
Has President Trump raised with you, discussed with you, your own past affiliation with Al-Qaeda terrorism?
I think this is a matter of the past. Now, we did not discuss this actively. We talked about the president and the future. We talked about the investment opportunities in the future in Syria, and so that Syria is no longer looked at as a security threat. It is now looked at as a geopolitical ally, and it's a place where the United States can have great investments, especially extracting gas.
Yeah, because we captured it. That's why. It's a geopolitical ally because we captured it. Now we control it. You understand how that works, guys? You understand that is American imperialism. That is the Greater Israel Project. That is all of everything we do around Latin America, everything we do in Africa, everything we do in the Middle East. You guys understand that that's what we're talking about here. He's telling us that America can control the region now because we captured it. And he is the puppet that we put in place because he's been listening to what we've told him to do the entire time. Nothing's changed. The only thing that changes is our orders, our instructions to him. Put on a suit and tie. That's really the only difference. Before you go on camera next time, you'll play a different role, but he's still listening to what we tell him to do because we created ISIS and Al-Qaeda from the beginning. Al-Qaeda is a CIA operation. That's what it is. You think the people in the Middle East, these revolutionary terrorists, as we call them, just came up with that name? No, it's a CIA name. It's a CIA. There's a whole backlog file of the creation of Al-Qaeda. We created it. So that should be the big reveal here. Let's see a little bit more he has to say about. He's actually sounding a little like Obama right now. Hey Obama, why aren't you holding Dick Cheney and George W. accountable for crimes against humanity and an illegal war, murdering 1 million Iraqis and starting an illegal torture program and starting a Homeland Security surveillance state right here in our country? Why aren't you holding them accountable? And Obama says, well, the way I do my prosecuting is I look forward, not backward. That's what we have to do. We have to look forward, not backward. And he's going to sound just like that. Here we are.
Do, Mr. President, have regrets that al-Qaeda carried out those attacks that killed 3,000 Americans?
I was only 19 years old, so I was a very young person. And
Oh, 19. Well, that's fine, dude. Obviously, you don't have you can't have any regrets for that or wish it didn't happen because you were 19. But go ahead.
didn't have any decision-making power at that time, and I don't have anything to do with it.
You still don't have decision-making power, you moron. You still don't. You're just not 19 anymore, you dumbass. And you guys understand this, right? I don't have any decision. You still don't. You do exactly as you're told to do. So you're going to be asked about whether you have regrets. Of course you don't when you're taking orders from top down. As a lot of military will tell you too, that don't have enough sense to step outside and say, I'm done with this shit. I'm done being controlled by crazy, insane, warmongering people that are telling me what to do, and then me giving the excuse that I was just I was just following orders. So of course, yes, duh, you didn't make decisions. What are you even talking about? Okay, go on.
And Al-Qaeda was not present right then in my area. So you're speaking to the wrong person about this subject. We mourn for every civilian that got killed, and we know that people suffer from the war, especially civilians who paid a price, a hefty price for the war.
Well done. Well done. And again, I want to point out, Fox News might be asking the questions. If CNN isn't and MSNBC isn't asking the questions, that's fine. But understand that those answers are designed to let the demographic know that watches Fox that are a little more warmongering-ish, a little more, by the way, a little more Islamophobic, right? So they need to be reassured that everything's on the up and up, and him and Trump are make America great, and that's how it is. And that's why he was allowed to go on there, and that's why those questions were allowed to be asked, and those very carefully crafted answers were given back. He was told those answers in advance, and he followed instructions, as he always has. And that's the end of it as far as mainstream media is concerned. Well, let's just get a little more take on Twitter from some people actually doing good job with journalism. Jimmy Dore says the obvious, which needs to be said. White people are freaking out about Mamdani. The president of the U.S. is welcoming to the White House the head of Al-Qaeda from Syria. They're buddies now. The U.S., Israel, and Al-Qaeda are all working together. What? Yep. Feel like a sucker yet? If you're just discovering it now, you might feel like a sucker. But hey, welcome to the show, guys. Grab a bag of popcorn. Sit back. There's still more show to come. More theater coming, guys. All right. Glenn Greenwald. We'll end with this one. This is good. The U.S. fought the war on terror for more than 20 years. It's ongoing. It not only cost trillions of dollars and more than 1 million lives, but radically and permanently eroded core civil liberties for Americans. Now, the DOJ, called an Al-Qaeda terrorist less than a year ago, is welcome to the White House. No word is more meaningless and manipulated than terrorists. And we talk about that on the show all the time. It's a word assigned to the thing that we need to push or not push or protect or deflect or destroy, right? It's only a word, and it's not real. It means nothing. Yet it is at the center of our discourse and shapes the most potent government powers and laws. Its lack of a fixed meaning is what makes it so useful and so dangerous. And I would add to that, Glenn, anti-Semitism, also very useful. And why not throw a few more in there, right? How about anti-science and conspiracy theorists and white nationalists and all this stuff? You go on and on with that. But this word, terrorist, absolutely a weaponized word used against us. Good job on that, Glenn. There's the pick. There's the pick. There you go. Make Al-Qaeda great again from combat. Good post there. And that's it. And that's all. That's all it is. Again, you're not going to get this story on any of the mainstream news networks, not the real story, the story we're covering here. And that should do it for this week's a real fake news update, not brought to you by Pfizer.